All right, sixth grade team, let's talk about lesson plans for the week of 9/28. I would like us to spend some time focusing our improvements on objectives and performance tasks. So this is one of those few things that I'm asking you to go ahead and change before next week. I don't care if you retype it in your lesson plan. Just change it on your board, and I will make sure you have access to this document. So if you don't want to retype everything, when you write it for your students, let's go with these examples. So if you look at the top, I've got the objectives for the small group and the performance tasks that should go with that. So 6.2b, you guys had, we will practice identifying clue words to determine the meaning of vocabulary terms. My suggestion is you move that to, we will define unknown words using context clues. So the first change is please don't dumb down the actual academic language. They don't need you to move context clues to clue words. The words they're going to use from now until high school are context clues. And when you have words like practice, those are just extra verbs. Your verbs are your TEAC words. They're your Bloom's words. So what are you having them do? You're having them define. So short and sweet, we will define. What are you defining per the TEAC? Unknown words, unless you have multi-meaning words. If that's your focus, then change them. Short and sweet, TEAC based. We will define unknown words using context clues. Then your performance task. Students will be able to identify clue words to identify unknown words. That's not measurable. It's what they're doing, but what's the thing at the end, the exit ticket that you're checking? That's your performance task. So students will identify the context clue that supports the word, fill in the blank with whatever that last exit ticket word is, and define the word using the context clue. Those are two measurable skills. Did they identify the context clue, and could they define the word? So you can go back and know, yes, they did those two things. Yes, they corrected this, so I don't need to put them in the station again. Measurable, exactly what they're doing. All right, 6.5F. We will practice making meaningful inferences about how the characters influence plot development. Again, your verb is infer. So you're not going to practice making meaningful inferences, you're just going to infer. We will infer. What are you inferring? Use the T. Characters' influences on the plot. We will infer the characters' influences on the plot. I didn't know if you meant one character or more, so if it's an individual character, go ahead and change that grammar. Your performance task. Students will draw conclusions about a text by creating inference. That's what you're doing throughout, but what's your exit ticket? So whatever your exit ticket is, turn that around as your performance task and make sure it's measurable. Comprehension clubs. We will identify textual and personal connections to our self-selected text. This was the best of the three. Short, sweet, to the point, based on your TEAC language, also student-friendly. But is identify your right verb? Are they just identifying connections? Is that something they can actually pull out of the text? Or are they having to go to a higher level to make those connections? I don't think that's a high enough verb for what you're having them do here. So update that verb, especially if you use a different verb somewhere else in your objectives to talk about making connections. So use that verb consistently. What is the verb you're using when you're having them making text-to-text and text-to-self connections? Your performance task. Students will identify one connection from the mentor text to their self-selected text. Students will identify one connection between their mentor text and themselves. Get it down to one. What are they doing? Students will know they are successful when they write a two-sentence response connecting their novel to our mentor text and themselves. That's measurable. Do they have two sentences? Did one connect to the novel? Did one connect to themselves? If they did that, you're good to go. Now let's look at our whole group objectives. These are done Monday through Friday. Monday, we will assess our knowledge of making inferences and context clues using Renaissance. That's not what Renaissance assesses. It assesses their reading level. So we will assess our personal reading level using Renaissance. And then these should definitely be measurable. Students will know they are successful if they do their best to set their personal reading level. This is different because it's a BOY. From now on, there's a score they're shooting for, or they're shooting to meet their personal goal, or they're trying to raise themselves so many months of reading level. But right now, they're just setting their personal reading level. So how are they successful? If they did their best. Then you did Tuesday, students will draw conclusions. Yes, that is a TEAC verb, about the narrator of the story. There you go, clear. But then the performance task, can I make inferences based on what I read? that's not measurable. So what are they doing? Students will be able to describe the narrator and support their description with 3 details from the text. Wednesday, students will assess what they have learned in a post-assessment. Yes, but what are we assessing? What are the TEKS that we laid out at the first that we're checking? These TEKS are inference and vocabulary. So students will assess their ability to define unknown vocabulary and make inferences. And then what's the measure of success? Meets, 76%. Students will know they are successful if they score 76% on meets or meets on their post-assessment. Thursday, students will use character analysis to create inferences about the narrator. Again, all I did was change the create to make because that's the TEK verb. Just stick with the TEK as much as you can. Students will use character analysis to make inferences about the narrator. Little change, not a big deal. Just trying to get it consistent. Students will answer 3 question stems for the mentor text Brown Girl Dreaming. Okay, you're getting closer. 3 question stems, that's measurable, but how do you know if they're successful? So students will know they are successful when they correctly answer 3 out of 3 questions about the characters in Brown Girl Dreaming. If you're telling them you're making inferences about the characters, then the performance task needs to be about the characters. Friday, Eagles will learn to write and use a compound sentence. When we're doing grammar, what are we doing? We're writing and revising. So they're not learning how to do it, they're doing it. So we will write, or Eagles will write and revise compound sentences. Students will write and revise compound sentences. And then how are they successful? Students will know they are successful when they correctly identify the parts of 2 original compound sentences. I know you're having them highlight, that's what they're doing, but what is the skill they're showing you? They're showing you that they can identify the parts of 2 sentences they wrote. So correctly identify the parts of 2 original compound sentences. So again, just to sum up, you're looking for short, sweet, student-friendly based on the TEK and your objective. Use those Bloom/TEK verbs for your verbs. Don't add extra words. Performance task, the exit ticket. What are they doing to check that they are successful at that, and make it as measurable as possible. For us, that's not always a percentage, but we can make it measurable. They have these 2 things. I can check these 2 things. If they have these 2 things, then I know they've got the skill. So other notes, just as a quick, on your small group intervention at this point, when you're putting in your groups, you need to be putting in the kids. So you're identifying in your lesson plan, these are the kids I'm pulling. So when it says students, tell me who's going, not group 1, 2, 3, but who are the kids in group 1, 2, and 3. 2, we talked about the academic vocabulary, keep that up. And 3, only put the small group for that day on your plan. So instead of having all the comp clubs and all the 7.2, 6.2B and all the 6.5F, the day you do 6.2B should be on that day. The day that you do the comp clubs, and that's going to be a copy and paste for a couple of days, that should be on those 2 days. The day you do 6.5F, that should be on that day. So put just the small group for that day on each day. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.